We'd like to welcome you guys back to the Trampled Underfoot Podcast show. And we are your hosts, Mark Lindsay and Eloy Escagedo. And so what's going on, Mark?
Just figuring out my own way to rock, you know, just plodding along one day at a time, doing some yard work today. I've got more to do tomorrow, but tomorrow's a new day. So,
So
I mean,
what's on your radar?
oh man, all kinds of stuff. I'm sitting here. We don't really do show prep, but if I want to talk about something, I try to pull up a few pages because I know history is going to be involved and a few other things. So I want to make sure I have my facts right. Now, you're not a Macintosh guy, are you?
I was a Macintosh before you were in diapers, son. No,
Well,
I'm not a
since I'm
Macintosh.
14 years older than you, that would be difficult. Okay, how about your phone? You Android or Apple?
No, I don't do any of the hoity-toity
Hmm.
thematic like,
Hmm.
in stuff unless it's just I no, I don't do the Apple stuff.
Okay, so you're not on with Apple or anything. Okay,
No.
well, have you ever heard of an Apple AirTag?
AirTat?
AirTag,
No.
TAG.
No.
Okay. This is going to be an interesting story because I this was suggested to me on YouTube. It just when I clicked on the YouTube homepage, this was one of the videos it suggested. And it was a news report out of Detroit. And I watched that. And it was just like a minute and a half news story. Then I watched another one out of Atlanta that was a couple minutes longer. Basically, Apple has come up with these things and they've been around for a while. They're called AirTags.
Okay.
And it's actually a very cool idea if you are prone to losing, say, your keys or your wallet or the remote or something like that. It's a little disc about the size of an American 50-cent piece that you can tuck inside like a purse or your wallet, or you can stick it to the back of a remote, or they even have them already pre-sewn into leather key fobs. And you can have them laser engraved in the whole thing. And what it is when you get this AirTag, you register it to your phone. You pair it up with your phone, and it uses Bluetooth to locate that tag.
Gotcha.
So if you're looking for your keys, you can, you go into your iPhone and you say, ping my keys, and the tag will start making a sound until you pick them up and shut off the that noise.
That's useful.
It's a really cool piece of technology. But here's the thing. This news report was from a guy who lives in a suburb of Detroit, and he's got a bright red Dodge Charger. And it's one of the more desirable submodels of Dodge Charger. I mean, they only made so many of them. It's got this engine, it's got this color, it's got these options. And they only made so many of these things. Well, built into the iTag is also a notification that if he drove to a mall and did his thing at the mall, then went to a friend's house, and he was leaving his friend's house and going home, all of a sudden this notification came up on his iPhone that said an unidentified device is traveling with you. So he pulled the car over and got out, and it gave him an option to have the device make a sound. And so he chose that option, and he immediately called the cops too. He figured out that somebody had crawled underneath the car at the mall in the parking lot, and there's a rubber plug in the trunk for drainage. Pulled that rubber plug out and stuck an air tag up into the trunk so it was underneath the carpet but on top of the metal, and then put that plug back. He called the cops. He found the tag, took it out of the trunk. The cops got there. He gave it to the cops and everything. They said, yes, this is becoming more and more common. Car thieves or people wanting to follow other people will get these air tags, because I looked it up. You can buy them on Amazon. You can get a 4-pack for $100. They're about $25 a piece. And he thinks, and the police agree, that they were tracking his car looking for an opportune time to steal it. But if the tag gets away from its registered owner a certain distance for more than a certain amount of time, that's when it warns you. It sets up a warning that an unidentified device is traveling with you. The report from Atlanta, they had talked to 3 different people. One of them was the same thing. They think they were trying to track the car to steal it. The other 2 were young women who didn't have, really classy or really desirable cars. So you can only let your mind go to the nefarious side of things going on. And the whole thing, it was something that I've been wanting to share with you for a couple of weeks, because the whole thing is kind of frightening when you stop and think about it. These tags are so cheap that, let's just say it's a car thief. I looked at the numbers. iPhones make up about 24% of the cell phone market in the US. Android is the other 74 to 76%, just depending upon who you listen to. So if you're a car thief, you got to figure, is it worth it to invest $25 to put a tag on somebody's car, knowing that there's a 75% chance that the person has an Android and will never detect it?
Yeah, it's a weird thing.
It's to me, it's scary as hell, because that adds a whole new layer, of tracking. I mean, we talk about our privacy online, but I don't know that anybody is talking about our privacy out in the real world.
I don't know about our privacy online as a thing.
Well, no, what I'm getting at is we are concerned. We hear a lot of talk about it. It's mentioned. Online privacy. We discuss it. But very rarely does anybody discuss the real world and what's going on. I mean, what we have seen, back in the day of Batman and Dick Tracy, and I mean, gosh, you name the TV shows where they put little homing bugs on something or somebody and they can track them and follow them. Well, now that's real, and it's a real thing. It's a real concern, and it's in the hands of the everyday consumer. And I don't know what I think about that.
I mean, I don't know what I think. I think that if it's on the market and people have their use for it, they should use it. I think it's fine. What people use it for, different purposes, nefarious and stuff, I think that
Mm-hmm.
falls under the category of everything else that's possibly implicitly, or that can be anything that can go and be used for nefarious reasons is out there already anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just another one of those things that can be used for ill, but I don't know that, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
well, my question to you is this. For instance, all cell phones, and this is law in the United States, all cell phones, whether you have service or not, whether you have a service agreement, If you find a cell phone laying on the sidewalk, all cell phones have to be capable of dialing 911 as long as they have battery power. You have to be able to dial 911 on it. Okay. And so my question is, Apple has all of these protections and safeguards that are available to iPhone users, but they're also only about, depending upon who you listen to, anywhere from 24 to 26% of the market.
Right.
Do you think that Apple should be required to come up with an app on Android that would warn you that there's an AirTag traveling with you, even if you're not using an iPhone?
My initial thought is they shouldn't be required, um because this falls under the category of, it's the same difference as guns. If you own a gun, you need to register it. um
Well,
I
no,
know it's not a gun, but well, no, let me sort of
go
throw
ahead.
out what my thinking is.
Yeah.
um Gun or any random thing that's possibly can be used for bad things, um it's not until the person does a bad thing with it,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point the person has crossed the line. But prior
I
to that,
agree with that. I
that
agree with that.
dangerous thing that can cause problems is not, um it's just an object. It's the
I agree with that.
person's,
I
it's,
agree with that.
so I see it like that.
I agree with that 100%. I really do. However, what makes me think a little bit differently is this. In those cases, you are voluntarily purchasing the item.
Hmm.
This is something that is being used against you. This is being placed in your vehicle against your will. Should it be incumbent upon Apple to warn all cell phone users that there is something in your vehicle, there is something traveling with you that is not identified? I mean,
I,
and they even say, and this is a direct quote from their website. I have it here. Let me find it.
but I think my thoughts on it cover that, that situation where, I don't think that there should be any official force by government, on them to do anything. I think it's
Well,
their
okay.
their prerogative, and that they should, in good conscience and fair and good policy for the company, do that you're saying. But I don't
I,
think that
I
the
think
whole
so.
government thing should even be, in it.
I agree with that aspect of it, that this is something that they should do for on their own.
Yeah.
Because here's a direct quote from their website. The AirTag is designed to discourage unwanted tracking. If someone else's AirTag finds its way into your stuff, your iPhone will notice it's traveling with you and send you an alert. After a while, if you still haven't found it, the AirTag will start playing a sound to let you know it's there and where it is. Of course, if you happen to be with a friend who has an AirTag, or you're on a train with a whole bunch of people with AirTags, don't worry. These alerts are triggered only when an AirTag is separated from its owner. Okay? So they understand there's an issue. They know the potential is there for something unwanted.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. I think that there's so many things that we can switch out for the AirTag as possible,
well,
harmful, things that are capable of
well,
creating harm.
like for instance, and that's why I brought up that every cell phone, regardless of manufacturer and regardless of cell service provider, every cell phone has to be able to dial 911. That was seen as something that was required, and that's a law. To be sold in this country, it has to be able to dial 911. My question is this any less essential? Because what I'm seeing right now is it's going to take, and it's going to happen. The odds are almost 100% that this is going to happen. It's going to take somebody getting hurt or getting killed because of this technology before something is done about it. And that may lead to an all-out ban. So would it be in everybody's best interest, especially Apple, to go ahead and release an app for Android that would notify you that there's an unidentified AirTag traveling with you? And you still don't think that the government should tell them, no, if you're going to do this, you've got to make that available to everybody that wants it for their own protection?
Yeah, I don't like, I think that this is not I mean, so I can say that now, but let's say I was in a situation where it affected me, and like anything else,
Sure.
people then think differently of the item, let's say, because the perpetrators of, because things are inanimate objects,
Right. It's
you
just
know,
an object. It's just a tool. I agree with you.
the only thing that's conscious is us, and the tools and implements all around us are just things that we come up with, and the potential harm, a future potential harm, using an item in not the I guess legal way, by crossing the line and committing some sort of like fraud, burglary, theft, murder, and all these things. But that is after, so that's the intent of the person. That falls on the person, not the item. Like beer.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Beer is not necessarily the best of the of the drugs, let's say, because it causes a lot of people to get all angry and this and that. So there's potential in it already, but we have all as a society come to a certain understanding, for the most part, that beer in the shelf at the store is not the one. It's you going and doing the bad deeds. So even though this is a technological slant to it, I think that they should do that for the benefit, but I don't think that government, I mean, anything that's like government regulation, I try to go to the less.
I know that, and I understand that, and for the majority of the time, I agree with you on that. I think government needs to stay out. But when you see something like this, the difference between beer or a gun or a hammer or a machete is, once that is sold to the purchaser, there's really no way of knowing how it's used or why it's used that way. And there's no way of warning somebody who's drinking a 12-pack. There's no way of warning every driver on the road to watch out for this guy drinking a 12-pack. There is a way to be notified that you're being tracked. You don't think that there's a difference. There's no way.
There's a difference in these specific things, but as a rule, as an ethical rule,
okay,
I think
interesting.
I think that there is. I mean, it's kind of like when we talked about. I think it was was it your state and a few other states, they legalized all sorts of drugs and this and that.
Yeah, but
I see it as the same problem.
see,
I I don't I don't want to be um preemptively anything. Then again, I can personally take preemptive action and this and that, and I can personally decide to do and not do. It all falls into the category of
mm,
there's no crime. Any item is just an item, and there's no crime until the human individual gets up and takes action.
I I
That's
ag- I agree with that. I do agree with that. But I don't think they're similar at all. I don't see any similarity at all between drugs or alcohol or a gun or a machete or a knife or anything like that and this technology.
no, it's not
Because
the techno. Hold on, but it's
no,
not the
no, 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 no,
technology
no,
I'm
no.
arguing.
I know it's not the technology you're arguing. What
Okay.
I'm saying, I know that. I realize that. Let me finish. I don't see a similarity between those things in that this is something that there is a known preventative for. It's possible. It's already out for certain users. Shouldn't it be made mandatory on the company that it be available for all users?
No,
Just like the ability to dial 911 is mandatory for all companies.
no, it shouldn't, in my opinion,
Okay.
at all.
Uh,
Because again, it's what I had mentioned on. So you have a concern on with it, and I can see why you have a concern with it because obviously that that device, unbeknownst to somebody traveling down the highway,
mhm.
could be being followed by someone that has ordered a hit, like let's say a
or,
wife
or just wants
unexpectedly.
to steal a car, you know?
Any number of scenarios that fall in the category of illegal,
Mhm.
um, and this company can lessen the probability of that occurring. I'm for that,
Mhm.
but I'm for that under the pressure of the customer base or forcing the company to tweak their product or the company itself offering better service by adding that additionally, but that remaining in the realm of the private business and whatnot. And as far as the government getting involved because they see a spot where they can fit you know their force into it, regardless of how good, because they come up with good stuff all the time that
Mhm.
sound reasonable. Because anything sounds reasonable, but so and what harm? And then you ask, well, what harm would it do if government used that? Well, government uses by it's government uses force because that's all they are. They use well,
Now,
that's not all they are, but
I
that's
see.
how they
I don't
well
see it as force.
it is force because I'll explain why I'm saying it's force. Um, so anything that we don't want to do, we don't do as individuals. Um, However, we exist in a world where there's government, and I'm talking in the broad thing just
Yeah.
to make my
I.
point. And the government is there, and it has regulations, and there's
Mhm.
the processes that we know, voting, and just all of that. Um, where the individual can likewise, there's nothing ever that stops a person from saying no. But if you personally say no, or if I say no to you, or you say no to me, the consequence is between us and whatever the topic is and that. But with government, they have a tool that's a legalized tool, and that's the use of force and fines and this and that. Basically, it's compelling, and so this sounds like a reasonable thing, to you, and I can see why. But um, they compel, and
Yeah.
every opportunity they take to compel, they do so. And so,
Well,
on principle, I even though benefits can come of it, um, I will say that it's up to the private sector to deal with that and strip or what's the word, deny the government access. My
Well,
whole thing is to deny government at all
well,
terms.
you're powerless to do that. But I don't see this as force because this technology has to be licensed. It has to be approved by the Federal Communications Commission. They can just as easily ban it and say, no, you can't sell those in the United States.
Why would you say something like, well, after I did the most best job that I could
Because I'm trying to
explain,
face, because I'm trying to
and
face,
then you come in and say,
because
oh,
I'm
you're
dealing with,
powerless.
because I'm dealing with reality. You are powerless. The government's going to do what it wants to do.
See,
I just
but
wanted your
that's
opinion on it.
that you just said, but I'm dealing with reality. That's not fair, because you asked me a question, and then
Yes.
you hit me with a, well, you're not dealing. No, I understand,
Mm-hmm.
and you could easily
I,
assume that I would understand that government,
well, yeah, yeah, you
because I'm
know it.
explaining that they're using force and that I'm power. So it's a given that they do what they want, and you just stated that.
Okay,
Well,
but you didn't let me finish my thought, is what I'm getting at.
okay. I mean, but but saying it was
Okay.
kind of like, what? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, here's the scenario. You're powerless to stop it. Okay. Government is going to act. This is the scenario. There is a choice. They can ban it, or they can tell Apple, you have to make this available to Android users as well. If it should come down to that, what side do you fall down on?
If it comes, say it again.
Those two choices. It's either you make this warning technology available to Android users, or we're banning the sale of those AirTags within the United States. It's your choice. Two things, pick one. Where do you
Right,
stand on that? It's still
right.
force. It
It's
still falls
always
under your
force.
tongue.
It's
But
always force.
but which of those two would you think would be the better option of the two?
Um. Well, better.
Yes. I mean, there is obvious benefit to these AirTags, finding
Yeah,
your
but better.
luggage and things like
But
that.
dealing with better right now, um, in the series of things
Mhm.
that you've laid out,
Yeah.
um, you've you've admitted or agreed
Okay.
to that it's use of force, and the scenario is a
Right.
use of force
It
because
is.
it's saying this or that, kind of like dad saying, son, either pick up your room or this, or it's kind of like the same
Yes,
old story.
it
So
is.
so
Let me
you know,
rephrase. Let me rephrase it. Let me back up and say, get rid of the word better. Which of those two scenarios do you see the most beneficial to the population at large?
I don't care which one is more beneficial to the population on principle. I I truly believe that, like, this is like one of my principles as a grown adult. This is like touching on one of
Mhm.
the my main sort of like what you call pet peeves.
Mhm.
The idea of being told, and I understand there's multiple, and we live in reality,
Mhm.
and the world that we live in, so I understand that, but regardless of that, principle sometimes goes above the limitations that exist in our lives.
I agree.
So we have a principle that we don't always meet. So so it's that, we have a way of thinking of how the country should be and how our rights should be and all these things.
Sure.
And it's not the reality, but it's sort of like, that's kind of like that little poster bullseye on the wall that one tries to, so the scenario you laid out for me, is basically the worst case scenario that you not not because of the things involved, but because of the power involved. I
Right.
always go to the so I don't care if it's two transmitters, one, if it's a rectal exam, if it's this, if it's that. I don't care. Like all those variables, they all have their and some are more
Mhm.
dangerous than others. But the dangerous one, the horror, is the one that you planted on me, which is it, pick this or pick that.
Okay.
If you, as Mark, were to say, okay, Eloy, pick this or pick that as Mark, with me,
Mhm.
the ability to say, like we
Right.
do all the time, well, Mark, you're giving me two choices, but I'm going to go ahead and add an
Well,
extra choice. And then you can come back and say, well, Eloy, no. And we could do that because we have the liberty of our conscience and our interaction,
con-
which is mutually, what's the word? We
mutually agreeable. I mean, you know.
we're mutually agreeing to interact.
Right.
But
But
this government situation that they say pick this or this or that, it's the worst case scenario you could offer
right.
me. And I know we live in reality, so but I'm
Well,
saying
consider this to be my version of you're on a desert island and you have these two choices, as you like to do to me. Now I'm going to get out of conjecture and I'm going to get into, well, I'm not going to get out of conjecture. I'm going to get into my opinion. Personally, I think this is going to be another case of what's come to be known as tombstone technology, in that somebody's going to have to get hurt or killed before anybody even takes notice of the situation. Then, when that happens, not only will there be lawsuits, but much like everything else that is a perceived crisis, government will immediately get involved. And they've been doing that in my entire life. I mean, I still remember the brouhaha that was about a year and a half long about the V chip in televisions. So the parents could monitor what their kids were watching and say, no, you can't have that. They could program parental controls in TV and not allow certain channels and certain. That's where the whole television rating system came from. Was Congress deciding that parents weren't smart enough to monitor their own children. So I've seen it in the past, and they passed the law, and every television set sold in America is required by law to have that circuitry in there, that parental control circuitry in it. They called it a V chip because it was supposed to be the TV ratings has a V on it for violence. That chip would eliminate that from the potential that little Bobby or little Susie might watch it while mom and dad aren't home. Hardly anybody ever uses it because 99 times out of 100, Bobby and Susie aren't watching TV. They're online or on their phone. So it's kind of a moot point. But I do see that coming down the pike because of the track record of government getting involved in technology like this.
well
And I honestly do, just my opinion, I honestly do think it's going to come down to one of those two choices for Apple.
if Apple, so here's the thing, if this is proprietary, there's a few things. If this is and this is just me thinking my thoughts, it doesn't have to be, it's just my personal, one person in the world of many brains thinking different things. It's just and there's some people that think like I do and many that don't, and so but Apple, and I'm going to assume a lot too, which I think is correct. Apple wants to make a profit. I think that that's a
Sure.
safe bet. And with this product, if it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to you can't sell it, or you can. In fact, Apple might even want the government to impose this because they basically cut off, you know, all sorts of competition if they make the regulation one
Mm,
way or the other. Um, there's all sorts of scenarios, but if they're going to keep making money, regardless of
Well,
that scenario that I just laid out, um, it
but
it would be beneficial for them either way.
see, that's it, and this is what I don't understand about Apple. Apple will not license its operating system or anything to anybody. If you want to use the Apple operating system, you have to buy an Apple product. Whereas Android and Windows are not that way. You Windows was basically designed for IBM computers, but they're used on every PC out there, just about Windows-based PC out there.
Did you think that I would have?
So,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, what I let me finish my thought.
Yeah.
So Apple can they can make an app for Android, and here's the kicker about it: they could charge 50 cents for that app
Yeah.
for a download.
Yeah. If it's beneficial for
You
everybody,
know,
they should.
so this is a money making thing for them potentially, because there I when believe me, when the as the word becomes more and more widespread about this, people are going to start saying, wait a minute, I got an Android. This is not going to make me go down and buy a $1,500 iPhone. This is going to make me wonder why the hell this isn't available for Android. So I also think, as a side result of this, somebody out there, an app developer, and if you're an app developer and you're listening, I want 10%. Some app developer is going to come out with an app for Android, say to hell with Apple, and this Android app will track the AirTag for you, and Apple misses the entire boat. Then the government has really very little need to get involved, because there is an option for Android users out there.
Yeah.
I think that's more likely.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, so
My main reason for bringing it up and bringing up the options and what have you is because I do know your position. You and I have
that's what I was going to ask you.
you and I have been friends since 2017. I just wanted to see if you had a line and where that line was on this subject.
Well, so that's what I was going to say before. Did you think that I would say anything different?
I wasn't sure. I
But-
wasn't sure because but see, as I do know your position on government, and I don't want to make this a political talk.
It's not political. It's just, you know.
No. I know. Yeah, I get it. I do know your position. Believe me, you and I, we've known each other since 2017, and we have talked on this subject many, many times for many, many hours. And about 99.999 recurring percent of the time, I agree with you. I just wanted to see if there was something that came about that would make you go, you know what, maybe we ought to rethink this, because this is not good for people. I also know how you are about physical and personal security. And I wondered if that potential threat to you, somebody maybe who has cheesed off at you for the last 10 years and just hasn't found a good way of getting even with you. Well, if they can throw a $25 AirTag in the back of your car and follow you out to the Everglades,
Yeah, but on principle, I think it works for me across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board, there's danger, and this has been said. I don't know who has. I think a few people have said it, that, and I'm paraphrasing, but there's danger in the idea of freedom, freedom in respect to individuals being autonomous in society, walking around as opposed to a ant pile or a bee's nest, where all the bees are working in conjunction. We have a situation which is a little unfamiliar to a certain degree to other parts of the world, where all these bees or all these little ants have their own agendas occurring.
Sure.
And so there's danger in that, because those independent little bees or ants running about, going after their own particulars, have whatever segment is deranged, depending on the severity of what they can
Yeah.
build in their mind as far as like a fraud or some sort of
Well, but they
crime.
also mainly
They
operate on a instinctual level. They're, you know,
so we're independent little workers,
right.
and there is a level of where we have government and this whole thing, and that's, but the opposite of that is, and we need some of it in certain areas, but the opposite of that is that we have a queen bee that's commanding us and telling us left, right, up, down, here, there, and stuff on every single thing. So I like a nice healthy balance of um, autonomy, as much as we can
Sure.
bear it.
And I'm
and
with you.
and I think that um, this is a very interesting. So if we were to use the same scenario, so I can see where this could be a problem. So I'm
Mhm.
not taking that away
Yeah,
from
I know
from the.
you're not taking it lightly
I'm
because
just
there is a
thinking,
potential threat.
but across the board, even when it comes to drugs, I think drugs are. I
Yeah.
mean, well, drugs are used for health benefits and this
Yeah,
and that, but under the context of, but for drugs and guns and this and that, guns are a very dangerous thing, and yet we have, but
true.
so across the board, my instinct is to say, until a crime is committed, then we can talk.
Right.
But
Well, but
where
see,
it would
that's the thing. That's the
where it
thing.
would where it would bottom out, where I would then scratch my head, would be, can an American own a nuclear device set up in his basement and so on?
That's an entirely different discussion for another day.
No, but I'm saying that
Because I
within the
think
spectrum.
I think you'd be surprised at my answer to that. But that's a different discussion to have on a different day.
Well,
Let me.
but within the spectrum, that's where I would stop and say, "Oh crap! Wait a second," because that's an imminent. That's the catastrophic population wide thing, and so, but then it comes into other problems, because you could make the argument for things like the vaccine, and they're making such
But yeah, but
it becomes
I do.
problematic
I
the
get
more
it.
severe it affects more people.
But that's
So
why
yeah.
they have to be taken on a case by case basis. Now, let me throw another wrinkle into this. Okay. Now, they never discussed it on the news report that I saw from Detroit, but they did say in the news report I saw from, excuse me, from Atlanta, Georgia, that currently there is no law against placing a tracking device on somebody else's vehicle. There's no law against it. Now, they're still saying, yes, if you should happen to find one of these things, number one rule is don't go home.
Is it not like invasion of privacy or something like that?
There's no law against it.
There's no federal law against it.
There's no federal law and there is no state law in Georgia. I don't know about Michigan, where the first news story was.
Right.
So, do you think it's appropriate? It's illegal for me to eavesdrop on your phone calls without your knowledge. At least it is in Oregon. Would you be at ease with the state saying it's illegal to place a tracking devices in someone else's vehicle, luggage, personal effects, or clothing without their knowledge and or consent?
Yes, because that falls under the category of um, maliciousness.
Mhm.
It falls under the category of affecting another person.
Mhm.
Um, it's okay. So it's the difference between, and this may be redundant, that a guy with a tracking device is walking down the street. He owns the tracking device, and it slips out of his hand, and it falls into the beggar's cup, and now the beggar is being
Oh,
tracked and stuff. That's an accident.
yeah,
Um,
that is
as
an
opposed
accident.
as opposed to as opposed to the guy's walking down the street, sees the nice fancy car, tags the car with it on the bottom, and now is actively ready to commit. So now he's crossed into affecting his,
Yes, somebody else.
so that's where it becomes a.
Right. And I agree with that 100%. The
But
thing is,
prior,
if you get separated with this air tag, if you have an air tag, let's say, and use your example, it falls into a beggar's cup,
yeah,
and you get a certain distance from you, your phone is going to alert you that you've been separated from the device. And it actually gives you a map and shows you where that device is,
yeah,
how far away you are from it. So you can go retrace your steps and find it. And it does this after you get to be a certain distance away from it. That could be a problem if you have one on your remote and you go to work and it's like, ah, crap, I got notified my remote's not with me. Yeah, I know my remote's not here. But it's the part about that's another thing about technology that kind of bothers me is it does not surprise me that the state of Georgia doesn't have a law against putting a tracking device in somebody else's vehicle. Why would they? That technology wasn't available to you and me for
but
until recently.
and I don't know the specifics, but
Mhm.
even though they don't have a law against, because the way these laws occur, at least that I'm saying,
Mhm.
it may not address a specific implement that's being used in this and that, but there's other laws that they can
Well,
apply to a certain, um, you know, crime or intent. So there's other things on the books that they can apply to something, even
y-
though it's not
well,
saying like,
according to these two attorneys that were on this news report, there is no consequence for doing what these people are doing. There's no law against it. Now, it wasn't that long ago. For instance, it would be against the law for you to put a little spy camera in someone else's house, but it's not against the law for you to put them in your house. But it is against the law for you to operate one if you, for instance, if you have
but there
guests
is,
over, if you have guests over and they're staying in a bedroom in your house, it is against the law for you to surveil them with your spy camera without their knowledge and consent. There are laws about that on the books now. And the reason there are laws on the books about that now is because so many internet websites popped up featuring that kind of footage. There was a hotel in Lake Tahoe, not a hotel, it's a little motel. And I don't remember the name of it, and it's probably a good thing because I don't want to mention it. It was found out after the fact that they had spy cameras installed in their rooms. And this was a hotel that specialized in
splash cam.
sexy times. You know, they had hot tubs in every room and heart
Yeah.
shaped beds and, you know, red fur on the walls and crap like that. Turns out that there were people being spied on. And when videos of couples who just rented a room for the night while they were in Lake Tahoe left the next day, pretty soon these videos are on the internet. But there was no law against doing that
No,
because
no,
it was
no.
private property. There was no state law against it.
Right, but
That loophole was quickly patched up.
no, see, I have a problem with this whole thing. Um, I have a problem with, so this is one of the problems that I see. You have a specific crime being committed with a specific tool or
Mhm.
planning or whatnot, and after 200 plus years of laws, from state to state, federally, the whole thing, there are so many laws that are applicable under the category of fraud, under harassment. There's so many
Yeah.
different things. So even though a device is brand new, it's being implemented to create a fraud or whatnot. Let me just say this one thing. Um, there's still laws that can encompass that, but government takes this opportunity to create one other layer, and then we've amassed all these things, and some of it is redundant. If it's not redundant, then by all means, in my
Okay.
personal view.
Now, in this specific case with that motel, the invasion of privacy in an area where you have a reasonable assumption of privacy, a bedroom, a bathroom, things like that, that was used to sue this motel, and they won that lawsuit. But there was no criminal statute that they violated. They did not get punished. They didn't have their license yank, their accommodation license yank. There was no punishment to them. So it's like they settled out of court. They paid this couple off and continued to do it until the law was passed.
Yeah.
Then they had to stop doing it because then somebody would go to jail.
There's also, you know, so let's say, for argument's sake, well, no, that exact example, the motel or hotel, um, people find out that, and that happened and whatnot. Um, People like good service, they don't like bad service.
Right.
And although they may continue with bad behavior,
Right.
through our natural, I guess, system of capitalism and other whatnots, people do decide, well, so they decide this is no good. There may be people that go, but
Oh yeah, because
but as the negativity, like, even
well,
online, like reviews and so on, there's
yeah,
a natural process to our system where we actually,
but you have to remember this was the early days of the internet and 5-star reviews weren't a thing yet. We're talking about like 98, 99, 2000 this happened, somewhere in there. So what I'm getting at is the laws didn't keep pace with technology. There were certain states that the same thing happened with these guys who run around with cell phones trying to take pictures up women's skirts, running
yeah,
around
but
the
you
mall and
don't
stuff like
need,
that.
do
No,
you
no, no,
need a
no.
law for that?
What I'm saying is in several states, there was no law against doing that.
No, dude.
Violation of privacy can be used for a civil suit, but there is no law enforcement statute. There is no law enforcement for invasion of privacy. They can tell you to stop, but that's about it. You can use that in a civil suit, but there was no law against holding your camera in such a position where it could see up underneath a woman's clothing and taking a picture. There is now, believe me, because I mean, a major media stink came up about this because it happened to a couple of celebrities. So when it affected them, Hollywood got on board and they, being the loudest 1%, they got all the attention and laws started getting passed against it. Now you will go to jail. That's all there is to it. So, but what I'm getting at is sometimes laws and legislation don't catch up with technology. And our court system is set up to where sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. If there has not been a law violated, they're powerless. Now, a person could file a civil suit, but there's no law enforcement component to a civil suit. And yet now, if that were to happen in a motel, it turns out they've got a camera and they're recording your wife walking out of the shower and all this other good stuff. That would spread like wildfire now. But we're talking about like I said, this was like 98, 99, 2000, maybe 2001, but I don't think it was as late as 2001. This was still when the internet was,
You don't even need to. So look, just to sort of like round it up to the to the so putting to the side the specifics of all these things, as a general rule, um I think that when crime is committed and fraud is committed, um on the basic tenets of what that means, which is
Mhm.
trespass against your neighbor. Um, those things are the basics. The extra that you're adding is that keeping up with the times. Um, I'm sure that has to apply because new technologies come into play, and that's why new laws get added.
Right.
Um, I'm just weary of you know I'm weary of additional anything. I like when it comes to government, I like subtraction,
Mhm.
and when it comes to individuals, even the most distasteful of individuals in our society, distasteful in that I might not have preference towards people, but I'd prefer them to have autonomy before, if I were given that choice, right?
Yeah, I don't want a big brother type society either where every step of yours is monitored. All I'm talking about is reasonable steps to take to warn somebody that there is a problem. Not that there's a potential problem, but there is a problem now. And in the case of the air tags, that technology exists. It is possible. And again, if you are an Android developer and you're hearing about this and the wheels are turning and you're thinking I can come up with an app and sell it for 50 cents on the Play Store, um, make your, we would like 10%, make your check payable to Eloy or myself, and we will license the idea, you know, 10% on each unit delivered or downloaded. But I know you can't anticipate everything. And there's no way anybody could have anticipated a camera on a telephone 40 years ago. I know. I remember the first flip phone that I got that had a camera I thought on it. I thought this is the dumbest idea in the world. Why would you want a camera on your phone? And at first, I think I was kind of correct, but as technology got better, I admitted I was wrong, and they're very, very, very cool to have.
Well, the technology exploded into
Well, yeah.
this
Well,
situation. Yeah.
because well, at least the phone that I had, you couldn't get the picture off the phone. You couldn't email it to yourself. You couldn't send it to yourself. You had to look at that picture on the phone. So
Yeah.
you're looking at it in a little screen like this. Oh, goody. Thanks a lot. Nice
Yeah.
panorama shot of Lake Tahoe. It
And
was
they
made.
weren't that great quality either.
No, it was it was like 110 by 12 or something like that. The resolution was rotten. 6 DPI.
Yeah.
Uh, it was 6 pixel, not 6 megapixel, 6 pixel.
Yeah.
Everybody looked like 8-bit Mario. But
But the technology did
but
grow. So
but this has led, and I know we're coming up on the hour, so let me end it with this. It's funny to watch people try to anticipate the technology, though. One guy, as a joke, back in like 1998, 99, something like that again. I do not have a reference for this story. I'm going by memory, but I'll look it up if you'd like. As a joke, he said he was going to create online hunting. Basically, it would be a rifle mounted on a tripod out in the woods with a camera on it. And for a fee, you could log in, pay the fee, and you could take control of that rifle. And whatever you saw, you shot. It was never a real thing, it was a joke. But there are several states in which internet hunting is illegal because of that joke. In California, they changed their fish and game laws so that the line you use to catch fish, you have to be holding it or in control of it. For instance, I know a guy down in Nevada who rigged up a line to a radio controlled boat and he trolls a little cove with it. And when it catches a fish, he brings it up to shore, takes the fish off the hook, and runs it out there again. Just trolls it around with a spinner on it. That's illegal in California because they wanted to avoid internet fishing, which nobody has even proposed. You have to be in control with your hands of that fishing line at all times because of that guy's joke about internet hunting.
Yeah, but I mean, what I would say to that is that that's you're making the argument for what I suggest, although I'm probably more on the extreme of that.
Yeah.
It's not the because that guy that made that joke,
Mm-hmm.
um he's perfect. I think it's perfectly reasonable for him to be as sarcastic
Yeah.
or convincing or
It,
not, like his will to explore
mm-hmm.
within the bounds of not hurting others, but his will to
Right.
explore comedy, humor, sarcasm, and whatever is his to do. And this government
Well,
is, boy, I want to get out the government part.
no, no, no.
You're cutting me off at the pass with the government because I gave the qualities of the independent guy, but I really wanted to
Yeah,
nail
and
down
they
the
agreed with
Go
that.
ahead.
They agreed with that. They found out it's a joke. They're like, okay, fine, good joke. But some mope is going to try to do it. We got to head this off at the pass.
Right.
That's when they got involved.
Yeah.
Nothing happened to the guy.
No,
at all.
But exactly that you said. So let's head it off at the pass, and we know that that's what it is, and that's what they do,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they're good at doing, and
Mhm.
and it's a void, and they fill it, and
Yeah.
that's what I am completely personally
Mm-hmm.
opposed to by principle.
Yeah.
And it's not that we don't need government. I mean,
Yeah, sure.
obviously, and it's not none of this exaggerated stuff. It's just that on balance, I want to accentuate the individual and diminish to the point of keeping it with, like you would a baby, like you would a little baby. That's how I want government to be. I want them to be nestled in the cradle of what the people dictate within the structure of our government as it was intended.
Mm-hmm.
I want them diminished because all they are is performing a service. Perform the service, but
Mm-hmm.
don't encroach on individual. So, and I want the individual accentuated, even though many of the individuals to be accentuated, even though many of the individuals to be accentuated, I may not be partial to because people are so different.
Right.
But I prefer that. Now, if this were some anarchistic and cocktail in Molotov and the whole world was coming to the end, then we would need to shift the balance so that we can control the savagery that's occurring. But the balance,
yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. But yeah, I get
yeah,
you.
the balance is tilted in the direction that I see of a little bit too much nosy.
Yeah, they need to be reminded on occasion who the real boss is and who really runs the son of a gun. And I get you for that. Okay, well, that was I really did not expect that topic to go for the full hour. I have other stuff that I'll save for later. I found something that musically that blew me away, but I'll save it for another episode.
Okay, let's wrap this up.
You might be aware of it. You might not be aware of it. I don't know, but that's something for folks to look forward to next time.
All right. So listen, we're the Trampled Underfoot Podcast show, and you can catch our episodes over on the Trampled Underfoot Podcast website, which is trampledunderfootpodcast.com. We go live every Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific time, and we also have a page over on Facebook. And we'll catch you guys next time. And we're also sponsored by
Steve Nealon at Harneal Media, your one-stop website shop. Steve Nealon is the sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com. That's our website. You can go over there and check out our past episodes. Go all the way back to episode 1, a couple of years back when, Eloy and I were a little less gray and all this was green fields with chirping birds. That's Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com, sponsored by Harneal Media. Now, if you're looking to build up a web presence, Steve is your man. He's a one-man operation. When you talk to Harneal Media, you are talking to Steve. He'll do as much or as little as you want. If you're a seasoned veteran and you're just looking for a web host, Steve can hook you up. If you are a total newbie like me and know nothing about running a website, Steve can hook you up. He can hook you up with a print-on-demand service that will print merch, t-shirts, baseball caps, coffee mugs, whatever you'd like, mouse pads. He can hook you up with that company. They take care of the shipping. They take care of the inventory. You just sit back and watch the orders come in. That's Harneal Media, Harneal Media.com, sponsor of Trampled Underfoot Podcast.com.
All right. Well, I get. You know what? We'll catch.
My second wind kicked in.
Yeah, no, you
I was on a roll.
Yeah, and you went. We want to thank you guys. Yeah, it was an unexpected direction, but I'm glad we did it, and also the fact that we went into it. So it was interesting. I didn't expect it at all. So nothing. Catch you next time. Have a safe week. See you.
Have a good night.
Give me 1 second so I can do this thing here.
You gotta go quit. We're still live. I'll do